Steve, what do you think about the role, say, the introduction of compulsory super? It says that people, made us a nation of shareholders, and that's why we want to read more and more about our investments in the business pages, and we devote more airtime to it.
Well, that's just rubbish. It's just not true. 36 on the Australian Securities Exchange's own statistics, 36% of Australians hold shares. And that would grossly overestimate the number who actually have any active role in the stock market, because a lot of those people, it's through maybe buying Telstra or getting shares in a demutualisation. So we're not a shareholder democracy. People own it through super, but not directly, and pretty much with super, they're not influencing it because it's managed by other people.
So what's driving the interest then? Is are we in front of
there is an interest, and I think Michael's right that the transmission mechanism of monetary policy, the fact that we have variable rates and the vast majority of people are on variable rate mortgages, there is an interest, and Australia's seen a lot of booms and busts and cycles, and I think there is an interest. It's not entirely a bad thing. But to get to the direct nub of your first observation, I would entirely agree with the former Reserve Bank Governor Ian Macfarlane. There's way too much coverage of what I would describe as economic ephemera. Monthly statistics which are neither here nor there and don't really sort of give you any sense of a trend. And part of that is because who do we go to as contacts? We generally go to market economists. What are they doing? They're advising traders who are looking to make money on information. And so it matters to them. But to the average person, okay, it does affect your hip pocket, but what you really want to know is where rates are going, whether rates are going to be going up, whether they're going to be staying down or staying steady. Month to month, it doesn't matter that much, and the month-to-month statistics can be highly misleading. And so there's a ridiculous amount of coverage on ephemeral statistics in economic journalism. And the stock market. The stock market gets so much coverage on a day-to-day basis. And for the reasons that I outlined, it doesn't actually matter very much to the vast majority of Australians what happens on any day in the stock market. But beyond that, the stock market is treated as if it's some kind of pulse for the economy, and it's giving us an indication of the economy's health. Well, you can have a long-run bull market, and it can be a sign of asset price bubbles building up, not a healthy economy.
But
and likewise, a crash can, it can be, but that's not generally how it's reported and interpreted. It's reported like a sports score. Oh, the stock market's gone up, it's a good day. And, our team's won. And it's nonsense. A lot of economic journalism is nonsense. And then you have to look at the opportunity cost. So whilst you've got vast numbers of people devoting themselves to ephemera, during the past few years, we had this huge build-up of risk and a lot of stuff going on that wasn't ignored. There was a lot of very, very worthwhile and commendable journalism, but did not receive the priority that it deserved, the time or resources that it deserved, and in that sense, just like the regulators, the Fourth Estate failed us. And that is partly a resourcing issue. And what does that come from? That partly comes from structural constraints, not entirely. But guess what? Reporting the numbers is easy. So you go up to an executive producer and an editor, as a daily journalist, and there's something you want to dig and delve into. Well, guess what? They need a story that night. So what are you going to do? You do the numbers because, as Sir Edmund Hillary said, because it's there. And only we make mountains out of molehills.
Okay, Michael, over to you. What do you think? Do you think the community is well served by our economic media?
Well, Stephen, I'm not sure whether you need to change jobs or not. It seems to be part of the problem or part of the solution.
I think it's very, very important. I think what we do is very, very important, but we need to focus on the right things.
I think clearly there is. I think a lot of people are interested in what happens day to day in the share market. I think this is a country where shares have been much more widely spread than they used to. I think it's a really, really good thing. I think people are generally interested in what's going on in the economy, just the gyrations we've seen over the past year and what's happening now. I think generally people will be interested in, well, are we now with what's going on in Dubai? Is that going to be something else that's going to sort of drag us down? Are we going to go through that? We've got housing prices out there. I think people are very interested in what's going on in housing prices. It's one of the great Australian things. So I think people are voracious for that information. I think to the market, the journalistic market or the media market serves that. Maybe they over-serve it. But it's a bit like the nature of news and information these days. It's a bit like the political market. The political market is a 24/7 market that is full of race-called politics. Mm-hmm. Look at the whole ETS issue will be largely written and covered in political terms. Not a lot will be done in sort of pure policy terms. I think and I think probably I agree with Steve on that point, that we do have an excess of commoditised, fairly low-level news. And as a policy wonky person myself, I'd rather but at the same time, I think it provides a market opportunity. If everybody's concentrating on all of that, and you can look at your wristwatch and find out, Matthew, have we found out exactly anything that we haven't found out what's going on?
And guess what, Michael? It's going to drive.
We're going to tell you if we
it's going to drive more down. It's going to drive more down that path and away from policy and away from investigation, because we're going to have Twitternomics. That's the next development.
Well, but I think you go through that process, and no doubt there's been a huge structural shift on the way information's come out, and it's able to come out before the market was very constrained on where mass information come out. Now it just comes out from everywhere, and it's one big thing. So we'll go through a period where we'll go all through that, but there'll still be, I think you get a segmentation of the market where people are interested in serious news. That news can get more serious. I think the Australian newspaper, for example, is an example of that. The Australian newspaper struggled through all of its existence as being a second buy in the old technology of metro newspapers. Now the market is broken open, and we've had more of a national market with a segmentation largely around the target being baby boomer executive class. Our market is better defined, and I think that's reflected in the newspaper itself.
Well, in the US, there's complaints that it's not about that there's too much economic information, but that it's too narrow. In fact, there was a study of financial news coverage done just a couple of months ago by the Pew Research Centre, and they found that the stories were confined to just a small handful of things like the government stimulus package, the trials of the banking industry, of course, and the auto sector, and to Wall Street, to the stock market. And there was much less attention paid to the kind of economic troubles of ordinary people. Indeed, there was a feeling that when the GFC was over in the US, the journalists would move on. Now, we can't, that's not going to happen here, but could we also be guilty of too narrow a vision of just, there's about 3 stories at the end of the day. Yes, there's little stories on changes in economic data month to month, but we do seem to focus on maybe 3 or 4 stories.